Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Blissful Literati. A great poet and philosopher once said, "It is what is beyond that makes poetry, what is unsaid in any work of art. Its unsaid part is its best part." This great man is none other than Robert Frost himself, who believed that great things often come in small packages. True to this belief, many of his most poignant poems are of short length, but that length is deceptive. His poems are loaded with great significance, and such a poem we are going to discuss in our session today. For today, we are going to discuss about Dust of Snow. But before we start, let's learn a little bit more about Robert Frost himself. Robert Frost was born on 26th March 1874 in San Francisco, California, and he died on 29th January 1963 in Boston, Massachusetts. He held the office of Poet Laureate from 1958 to 1959. His notable works include The Road Not Taken, The Death of the Hired Man, Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening, Mending Wall, After Apple Picking, and so on. He was awarded with the Bollington Prize in 1962 and won the Pulitzer Prize as well. Let us now talk about the theme of this poem. For themes, this poem includes man's relationship with nature. It talks about the therapeutic effect of nature on mankind. By the way, therapeutic means having a beneficial effect on the body or mind. It also talks about human complexity versus the simplicity in nature. Finally, it talks about the great significance that can be observed in the smallest elements. Let us now take a look at the picture which represents the poem. Here we can see the basic setting of this poem: a snowy day, a hemlock tree, the poet himself, and a crow sitting on a branch. So, this is the setting we will learn in this poem. So, let's first talk about the poem. The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. Now, we will go on to learn about the poem, its summary, analyze it, talk about its figure, rhyme scheme, and so on. But before all that, let's take a time right now to think why we should read this poem at all, why it is so important for us. Leave aside syllabus, leave aside curriculum. Just take a look at the poem. Just think about the meaning, what it is trying to tell us. All of us have faced a time when nothing seems to be working for us. Maybe exam pressure, maybe the competition, or maybe just the disease, COVID 19, coronavirus. Nothing seems to be working. It may even be the moving away of a best friend or the passing away of some near and dear ones. It may be even the losing of a match or the whole series. The bottom line is there are times when we feel low or depressed. This poem is for such people, even maybe for us, to remind that such times are part and parcel of life, and like waves, they come, but also like waves, they go away. All we need to do is to wait and persevere. So let us now talk about the summary of this poem. Basically, the poet is in a pensive or sad mood regretting his day. He is standing under a hemlock tree, and all of a sudden, a crow sitting on the tree makes a sudden movement, making some snow fall on the poet. The soft touch of the snow set in some change in the pensive mood of the poet. What happens? Basically, the veil of sadness or regret is lifted off. So, this is the poem in a nutshell. Now, before we go into the analysis, deeper meaning, and so on, let's first talk about the setting of this poem. So, first of all, the poem is set in winter, and the poet is just roaming outside in perhaps the later part of a day, or maybe even it might be evening time. Basically, he is outdoor, and outdoor can range from street side to small woods because he mentions a particular tree there and a crow sitting on a branch on the tree. Let us now talk about the character elements in this poem. What are the basic elements we will encounter? So, first of all, there is the poet himself, the human element, and the rest of the elements in this poem are all natural. For example, a crow, hemlock tree, and snowflakes. Let us now analyze the poem line by line. The way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree. So the poem it starts in the middle. All of a sudden there is a crow, and from the look of it, the crow is doing something, or who knows, has already done something. Remember the line, the way a crow shook down on me, the use of the past tense. So it's a forested area in the middle of nowhere, or maybe somewhere. So what is happening? The crow has basically done something. The speaker appears, he is standing under a hemlock tree, and the crow has shaken something down on the speaker, maybe the titular dust of snow. But imagine a crow making up snowball and throwing at people. Right, too much of imagination. Most likely, the crow is sitting somewhere and with its movement has shaken something loose. So, what happens next? You see, the opening sentence, the way a crow shook down on me the dust of snow from a hemlock tree, this opening sentence, it leaves something wanting as it indicates a process which is supposed to achieve something, but we don't know what it ended up achieving. And we will know, I think, as we come to the end of the poem, we will learn what it achieves. But before that, we have come to a cross section. We have covered half of the poem. So let's stop for a moment and relearn what is happening. You see, the first four lines are crucial to the poem as they are expository in nature. Step by step, each line introduces the character elements and reveals the setting of the poem. The first line introduces the crow, the second, the speaker, while the third brings in the titular dust of snow, the fourth reveals a hemlock tree. The crow in the first line tells that the poem is set outside, though we don't know anything about that outside. However, the snow further tells us about the outside season, which is winter, and the hemlock tree suggests that the speaker might be in some kind of a grove. So now, as the setting is before us, we can now move on to the next part of the poem. Has given my heart a change of mood and saved some part of a day I had rued. So, oh, he has a heart. Now we can cross out Edward Cullen, Damon Salvatore, and their ilk. This guy, though out on a wintry, snowy day in the middle of nowhere, with a crow or raven perhaps to keep him company, is not a vampire or any of their kind. He has a heart, so basically he is a human being. But what is a human doing outside in such a weather? Moreover, what has his heart received? The snow has brought a definite change in the heart of the poet. So whatever the crow has done, the way at the initial sentence, the opening sentence, the way it has done it, it has affected the speaker on some deep level, resulting in a change of his mood. The question is in which direction? So apparently the change has been positive. It has saved something, rather some part of something. Maybe the effect of the action was not that strong, but at least it has achieved something. Only time will tell if it was truly effective in the long run. Of a day I had rued. Oh boy, this is some serious stuff. The speaker was sad, rueful. He was regretting his entire day, perhaps, whatever had happened to him till then. Don't people contemplate suicide in such scenarios that something has gone wrong, everything is going bad? So, what to do? Let's commit suicide. What fun! Well, if that's the case, then perhaps the crow has done just enough to bring him back on the ledge. His action may have saved the life of the poet. So the snow, which was shaken down on the poet by the crow, is indicative of the transitory nature of human moods from a suicidal, depressive tendency back to saved, normal, by its own transient existence. Think about snow. It immediately, as it comes in touch with your skin, even the body warmth is enough to melt it into water. And you heat the water, it is transformed into steam, vapor. So it is itself transient and is thus indicative of the transitory nature of human moods. Let us now think what happened here at the end. The second and the last half of the poem brings the movement from the outside to the inside, as if the first half prepares the setting for the action and the second half discusses the effect of that action on the self. Though the poem is titled Dust of Snow, it is not the snow that affects anything. The snow was there even before the poet came under the tree or the crow on top of it. It is, I repeat, the way. In the very first line, the poet mentions a way, a particular way. So it is the way, as the poet points out in the very opening sentence. The action is done that affects the self. It is the way that affects the self. And how does that happen? The effect of the action that shook off some snowflakes on the poet is immense. The way he talks about holding his day in regret may suggest the outset of depression, a negative mindset which, if left unchecked, might have led him to some drastic decision. The touch of the snow had brought him back. It may not have cured him all the way, but it was enough to change his depressive mood and pensive heart and revive in him the warm glow of life. Let us now talk about the symbol and imagery in this poem. The poem is basically divided in two different realms, the natural and the human. So let us first talk about the natural. The natural realm includes winter. Winter is a season that suggests emptiness or barrenness. It may even suggest death. The seasonal cycle, in fact, can be taken to signify various phases of life. For example, spring, it signifies birth. Summer signifies young age and adulthood full of energy. Monsoon represents middle age, reaping the fruits of whatever has been sown with youthful energy. Autumn represents old age, and winter represents extreme old age and the resulting death. So, winter therefore may reflect the end of the speaker's energy, the end of the fight in him. It may also represent the rueful mindset and the resultant onset of depression. Thus, the winter is responsible for the dark, somber tone of the poem as it foreshadows some drastic decision on the part of the speaker if his current mental state is not checked. Then comes the snow. Snow is a result of winter, but the white of snow is set in sharp contrast with the dark winter. White stands for purity, it stands for peace of mind. The moment the snow dust, that is the flakes, touches the speaker, he confesses a change in his mood. The refreshing cold touch of the snow perhaps fills his heart with the warmth of life. In fact, we can say that if winter is the dark tunnel through which the poet is walking at present, then snow is the light at the end of it. Next comes the crow, a dark winged creature usually associated with dark elements like witchcraft and black magic and such stuff. However, in this poem, it is the movement of the crow that shakes the snow down on the speaker, which in turn results in the change of his mood. Till now, all the images used by the poet, that of snow, winter, and crow, can be said to be set in monotones of black and white, as if he is toying with the idea of the black and white demarcation of good and evil, and gradually drawing the conclusion that they cannot be thus demarcated. Good can turn bad, and from the deepest, darkest evil, something good may yet come. Then there is the hemlock tree. Hemlock is an evergreen tree similar to the coniferous pine group of trees. Another variation is the poison hemlock plant with small white flowers. Hemlock poison is the one which was used to execute Socrates' death sentence. And yet, the symbol is highly potent. The tree, which is synonymous with death, is evergreen in nature. The plant, which is poisonous, bears white flowers. White, if you remember, is the symbol of peace, as well as the color of the snow shaken down on the poet by the crow. Perhaps the crow has shaken down some white flowers of the plant, which the poet in his imaginative mind compares with snow. We will never know. Basically, it is as if the speaker is in a negative, toxic environment. The snowy season, the tree he is under, the bird sitting on top of the tree, they are all dark. And yet, the resultant effect is that of hope and revival. Let us now talk about the human realm. It is a very short realm because it includes only the human being, basically the poet. The only human element in this poem is thus the speaker. He represents all human beings who are riddled with negativity, hardships, and challenges in life. He represents the complex human psyche, dissatisfied with their lot and depressed in life. In the poem, we find the speaker regretting his day. Day may represent a single day or it may stand for his life in general. Yet, in nature, he finds some healing that removes the negativity from his mind and warms his heart with the glow of life. Let us now come to the title. The poem is titled Dust of Snow, but the poet says it's specifically, if I again go back to the beginning of the poem, specifically the way the crow shook that dust down on him has a great impact on his mood and day. The question then is why the title is Dust of Snow. You see, basically, all the elements present in this poem are interdependent and none can work alone. But it is the snow dust that actually comes in contact with the speaker, resulting in the positive change. Moreover, we cannot deny the poeticism in Dust of Snow. Poison, crow are all good and nice, but do they sound poetic enough to become the title of such a short but highly significant poem? I don't think so. So you see, the winter season results in the snow. The crow is the one which shakes the snow down on the poet, and the snow in turn brings the change in the poet. But of all these elements, only the snow comes in direct contact with the poet, not the tree, not the bird, and not even the season. So, the immediacy of its nature, the title becomes apt. Let us now talk about the literary devices used in the poem. We have the rhyme scheme. The poem follows A-B-A-B rhyme scheme. In the first verse stanza, crow in the first line rhymes with snow in the third line, and similarly, me in the second line rhymes with tree in the fourth. The pattern is repeated in the second stanza. So rhyme scheme is A-B-A-B. Then we have enjambment. The lines in the poem run on into the next without any punctuation. The full stop comes at the end of the eighth line, making the whole poem an example of enjambment. Then we have alliteration. Repetition of consonant sounds in close succession in lines like has given my heart, saved some part. Her sound, sir sound is repeated. Finally, there is irony. The dark elements of nature comes together, but not to some sinister end, but to send the poet's day. They all come together to save his day, to protect him, to bring him back onto the ledge. Now let us talk about the divine way. The way the poet has been highlighting it throughout the poem through all his figures. So what is all about it? The first four lines introduces all the elements in the poem. The one thread that holds them all together is the way they work, converge upon that one point, which finally relieves the speaker of his rueful state. The negative and positive elements are all found in nature. One cannot simply take the positive out of it. The snow was lying just there. It took a winter to have the snow, a poisonous tree to hold it, and a dark bard to shake it down on the depressed speaker, to bring him out of his negative shell. Dante, in his poem Inferno, part 1 of the epic poem Divine Comedy, presents Virgil as an escort to him through hell. When Dante is gripped with fear witnessing the great infernal horrors, he asks Virgil, his escort, the way out. Virgil replies, and this is highly significant, the way out is through. Philosophically speaking, sometimes the only way we can survive a problem is if we face it head on. Now, Robert Frost seems to be toying with Dante's idea of the only way out is through by giving it another twist. Not only sometimes we can solve the problem by facing it directly, but also something good may come out from even the darkest of situations if we can persevere and hold on. The speaker was indeed in a difficult situation, but all the negative elements, the winter, the snow, the crow, the poisonous tree, all the negative elements, he was surrounded by negative elements, literally and metaphorically, his mindset, his depression. But all of that somehow worked together to that dust of snow which finally brought him out, thus fulfilling Virgil's reply, the way out is through. And that's how we come to the end of our own journey through this poem. I hope you have enjoyed talking about the poem. You learned something new, at least about this divine comedy, the final part. If you have any questions, do leave a comment. Thank you till we meet again, and bye bye.